So, how are you doing, Ebube? How are you getting on? I know that we have been planning to do this for a little while now, but you were in school and you had a few exams and all that being December. But how are you getting on now? I think you're finished, and how is the course going? And tell us a little bit about the course.
Hi, Sam. It's been good to see you again. And yeah, thank God for the success of the exams. As you may know, I'm actually in second year at the University of Limerick, currently studying aeronautical engineering. So we just had our exams. We haven't had exams since we began due to COVID, but we had exams on campus this time around. And I thank God for them. They went well, and I'm happy with them. Thank God for wisdom. Thank God for strength. And yeah, so that's pretty much about it. The course is aeronautical engineering, which just involves study of planes and aerodynamics itself. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. I remember, I think we had a conversation at some point that, potentially you were thinking about piloting and becoming a pilot and things like that. So how does that tie in with aeronautical engineering, or is there a link? How does it work?
Yeah, the plan was to become a pilot. That was the original plan. From a young boy, I always had this dream to become a pilot. And funny enough, my grand uncle, I don't know if that's a thing, but my grand uncle was a pilot during the Biafran War. So myself, I was always fascinated with planes, and just that zeal to become a pilot was always in me. My dad also got me a video game when I was very young, which stirred me up into becoming a pilot, because I would just spend some days in my room just playing that game. So due to some certain circumstances and obstacles along the way, that was not possible. So I had to take on Plan B, which is becoming an aeronautical engineer, and that just involves making the planes, fixing the planes, making sure the planes are in good condition. So yeah, if you can't fly a plane, you make a plane. So that's the moral of the story. So, and hopefully I still get to live out that dream of becoming a pilot by the grace of God.
Yeah, I guess that at some point, perhaps, you probably get to that stage where, who knows what the future holds. I think it's just something that we kind of keep in prayer, put in prayer, and then see where God takes us, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so you probably know the outline of this. I've done one of these myself, and Pastor Solomon has also done one of these. So this is just where we do a little intro. So you tell us a little bit about yourself. You tell us, where you were born, a little bit about your family, your beliefs, and then what you're looking forward to with the podcast. So I guess we'll start with the first bit there. So just introduce yourself and just your history.
Okay. So my name is Carlos Ebube Okpe. So first name is actually Ebube, and that's translated from the Igbo dialect as the glory of God. So I was given that name, I believe, for a reason. So that's my name. It's actually, the full name is actually Oluwe Ebube, and Carlos was just a name given of recent by my dad, who was a firm lover of the reggae artist Don Carlos.
Oh, cool.
So he gave me that name, and I stuck with it because I love how the initials of the name just always come out as CEO. So I stuck with the name, and that's just about my name. And then originally I'm from Nigeria. Both my parents are from the Imo State in Nigeria, but I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. So after a few years, we decided to relocate to South Africa to have a fresh start in life. And we then ended up in Ireland just about 4 years ago. So thank God for that. Currently based in Athlone, which is in County Westmeath. That is, I believe, in the heart of Ireland. So yeah, pretty much it. And yeah, did I answer much of it? Location?
No, I think you've answered it well. I guess if how has it been, the transition from South Africa to Ireland for you?
It's been cold, Sam. It's been very cold. Different. There's a different atmosphere, different weather, different culture, different people, different language, different accents. It's everything is different. It's a big transition. Just for anybody to know, just moving from a different country, especially within a continent, is very easy, but outside a different continent is very challenging sometimes because everything is new. There's a saying, when you're in Rome, you behave like Rome. But imagine you don't even know how to behave in Rome. So yeah, that's how it is. And you have to get accustomed with the people, just the culture itself. And yeah, everything is new. It's new. And you just have to be able to adapt to change and yeah, go with the flow.
I think we're actually kind of in the same boat because I was obviously the same kind of pattern with you. Now I came from Nigeria as opposed to South Africa. But the same way that you had to transition from something or a way of life that you'd been used to for a while to something else, something different. There's not a lot of people that have to do that. Most people kind of stay in the same country, and that's they might go on holidays and things like that, but by and large, they stay where they are born, and they remain there for the rest of their life. So I can certainly relate with you in that regard. And just to ask, I guess, apart from the cold, anything else that is that you found interesting about being in Ireland? How would you describe Ireland in terms of how you've acclimatized to being here?
Well, the people of Ireland are very, very different, and in a very sense, they are very, generous and kind, and to see a level of niceness sometimes can bewilder you. But it's great to see people who are very, very close. Everyone knows everyone. It's surprising. They tend to form this idea of oneness community, and you love that. You just love to see it, and you just get to meet new people on a daily basis, and you get to learn about something new. Even if it's a new slang or a new word, there's always something you can learn from them. And yeah, it's just their kindness, the generosity is very good as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's a very generous culture, and the people are, by and large, incredibly welcoming and nice. And I've felt it almost the whole time that I've been here. So it's nice. I guess we're talking about the experiences. One of the things about coming from somewhere else to somewhere different is, you can't bring all your past with you. So your friends or your schoolmates or some of the things that signify home to you. You can't bring that with you. You just bring yourself. And I think that's something that I experienced as well, whereby I feel like I had a lot of friends, or I had a lot of close friends anyways. And it's been a struggle for me coming here to establish that. Because if you're not in the right circle, if you're not in an environment where relationships can be, how do I say, fomented, if you're not in that place, it's difficult to form such relationships. So I think one of the places, for instance, is church. So church is a great place to form relationships. But if you're in a small church, or if you're not in a church that holds events or that does things with other different places, you're less likely to do that. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Being in a church, you get to relate with people more, and churches here aren't really that packed, so it gives you the ability to actually meet up with some people. You get to actually know each and every person within the church sphere, and you get to interact with them, and even form relationships outside the church, and goes with every setting and every place as well in Ireland. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question then. So the next question relates to A little bit about yourself. So how long have you been a Christian, and what are your hobbies, and what do you like to do in your free time, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. How long have I been a Christian? Well, I'll say that I was brought up in a Christian home. Um, um, we were taught about Jesus Christ, God, the very basics of our Christianity. But then to say how long have I been a Christian, that I would say probably going to 3 years now. 3 years being a Christian, and
So you're quite
this
young.
very young. I'm a baby in the Christian family. So yeah, this idea of being a Christian is a funny one. It's a funny one because when we read the Bible, we don't see any way they pass out passports of becoming a Christian. Even I believe that even the name Christian isn't really mentioned in the Bible. So when you ask me how long I've been a Christian, I just perceive the question as being, how long have I been a follower of Christ? And I know it's might see it as the same thing, but I don't. So if I say how long have I been a Christian, I'll just perceive it as how long have I been a follower of Christ, which is 3 years now, and it's been best 3 years of my life. Best 3 years of peace, of fulfillment, of love. So many things within these 3 years. And my hobbies, love chess. Love playing chess. I love playing the trumpet, and I love football as well. Massive Chelsea fan, and yeah, pretty much a chess, trumpet, football, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. I know about the trumpet, and I didn't know about the chess. So that's you learn something new every day. And I know about the Chelsea one as well.
Yeah,
but look, not everyone is perfect, right? So,
yeah.
So anyways, you mentioned Christianity. You mentioned that Christianity is not really something where you get a passport. What is Christianity to you?
Christianity to me is, what Christ says, and I think in Matthew 11, he says that anybody who wants to follow me must deny themselves and take up a cross. And, we have to understand, what does that cross mean? Christianity is not what we've seen nowadays. It's, how do I put it? It's more of a lifestyle. It's a way of living. It's a way that we choose to live our lives based on someone we have seen, someone we have acknowledged, someone we have given the title as becoming worthy of that title of becoming Lord in our lives, which is of course Jesus Christ. So we see him, and we are not just fascinated by him, but we are drawn to him. We want to become like him, and we then dedicate our whole lives not just studying about him, but also, doing, not just studying, but also doing what he does. As I say, becoming like him. In those days we have movements. We talk about, Che Guevara, who was, a political activist during the time in Cuba. And you see people who buy into different ideologies, people who buy into different concepts presented by different great men. And, Jesus himself was the greatest of all. And when we see him, we look at his life, and we see what he has done and what he represents. It's just, I want to be like this guy. I just want to follow him. I want to give him everything, and that's it. So being a Christian, in its basic sense, is becoming like Christ, not just following him, but actively striving to become like him. And yeah.
You mentioned something about I want to follow him. And I think that's an interesting point. And if someone is listening, they might be like, "Well, I don't really want to," But I think, at least from my own experience of this, is that God wants you first, and then Just as you get to know him, you almost get addicted, It's like you see the beauty of who he is and what he calls us to and what he offers. And it's like, actually, I want to follow him. Would that be the same with you?
Of course, you just stand in awe of him, and then you recognize what he has done for you, and then um, you submit your will to him, because God has given each and every one of us a will. He's given us and that's what makes us special, that we have the ability to choose, and we then choose ourselves to submit this will to His will, and that's what Christianity is about. That you're not forced to, you're given the option to. I believe in the last podcast which I listened to with Pastor Solomon. He quoted John 3:16, and he says, "For so God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life." And I know we loved quoting that part, but there's another part down there which we don't really like, which talks about if you don't believe, you'll be condemned. And I know it sounds harsh, but you know, kudos to the Bible for actually telling us what happens when you don't believe. So and I think it's in the Old Testament. He says that I place before you life and death, but I beg you to choose life. So it's always about choices. Everything in our lives is choices. We have to choose between which path we're going to take, and where we should go. So God has given us that ability to choose, and it's up to us to whatever choice we might want.
Yeah, I think you actually raise a very good point, especially about choice, and we will actually touch upon that in one of the episodes in the podcast. But choice is really a big thing. Oftentimes in the world, people would mention freedom of choice, right?
Yeah.
Freedom of choice, and it means something else. In media, it means something else in the news. It means something else in social commentary and whatever. But in Christianity, it also means something else. And it doesn't mean liberty to do whatever you want. It means freedom of choice, as in to choose him or not to choose him. And I think that's something that is probably lost nowadays in the world in general, but also maybe in a place like Ireland, where people feel that Christianity is not a choice. But actually, every day, anyone who isn't a Christian is exercising a choice, right? I don't want to be that.
Yeah.
But then also, you can exercise the choice. If you do get to know what this is about, it's like, okay, actually, I think I would like to get to know more. And yeah, I think that's just a very important thing that you said there, that actually Christianity is about choice. And you choose, okay, today this is who I want to be, and this is how I'm going to go about it. And it's about then consistently making that choice for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on then. This next question has gotten some interesting answers over the last few interviews. So what are your core beliefs? So what message in the Bible resonates the most with you? I don't mean what are the core beliefs that Christians must have. I mean just you yourself. What message means the most to you? What message do you understand extremely well in the Bible?
Well, to say I understand it extremely well, then I'll be lying to you. But when you say my core beliefs, it's just I believe that it's essential to the salvation story of how one man lay his life for the good of others. So when you say my core beliefs, the first one is that I believe that Christ took on the form of a servant. He came upon the earth and he died for our sins, that we may be reconciled to the Father. That's the main belief I have. And also part of it, there are many, but the fundamentals of that, anytime we do go astray, that the God that we serve is benevolent, and he's sovereign, and he's kind, and he's merciful as well. So that any time that we fall astray, he's able to pull us back. I believe it's in Luke 15 with the parable of the shepherd who loses a sheep, of how he leaves the 99 for one sheep. And it sounds very funny, because how can you forsake 99 sheep just to find one? But that's central to the message of the gospel, of how God himself is love. We talk about this idea of love, but God himself is love, and how he doesn't want his sheep, any one of his sheep, to be lost, and he always goes out of his way to find the lost sheep. So those are the main beliefs which I believe I possess. That number one, that Christ indeed came to die for our sins, and that we were condemned to a life of hell, and he gave us something better. He offered us something better. By grace are we saved, not by works. And of course, that in everything that we're doing, and life is not easy on its own part. So God is always there to pull us back, to look for us when we fall. I believe, yeah, those are my core beliefs. So the message of, I say, maybe the parable of the shepherd, I think that's a message in the Bible that resonates the most with me. There are many, but of course that one is very striking.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful it's a powerful story, that parable. The story about a shepherd looking after 100 sheep, and then one of them got lost. And, regardless of that, the shepherd left the 99, as you said, and went after the one. And I think actually, just to even drill down a little bit into that, leaving the 99 was not a risk, right? The 99 were fine. And if anything had happened to them, they would have been found. So I think that's a point to make, to just, someone might be listening to that and just wondering, oh yeah, okay, fine, okay. But actually the 99 were just as safe, even though he wasn't there. He wasn't there, but he was there. And I think that's the beauty of God and of our belief in him, that just because he's looking after somebody else doesn't mean that he can't at the same time be looking after us as well. So yeah. Okay, so thanks for sharing your core beliefs. So now we're going to go to the last and final part of the introduction interview. So what are you most looking forward to with the podcast? So I know I'd mentioned it a couple of times. Okay, look, I might be doing a podcast. I mentioned this in the Bible study that we do together, and you got back to me a couple of weeks ago and said, okay, look, actually, I might be interested in doing this. So in the time that you thought about it, or in the time that you actually said, okay, look, I will do this, what pushed you towards it, and what are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, it's just this idea from I myself, it might not look like it, but I'm very, very, very shy. And I get nervous sometimes, and I get shy at some points in my life. But if we read the book of Acts, it brings up the story of different men and people who were intimidated after Christ, which was the person they were following, as I said initially. When to them he didn't really meet up to the expectations anymore. They just, everything went haywire, everything went just wrong, and you find them hiding, locked in, no more to be seen, or just in a place where no one could see them. But then it gives record of a special event that happened, and it talks of how they were given a unique gift. They were given what is called in the Bible as the promise, and the promise is, in blatant words, the Holy Spirit. And what happens is, and I'm saying this now for every Christian who might be like myself, is that when we really experience what those men experienced on that day, there is no more shyness. That's when the desire to speak about God is there more than ever. is when you receive that promise. And, I believe that anybody who claims to be walking in the Spirit, to even possess the Holy Spirit within themselves, and is shy, does not really have the Spirit, because that Spirit is a spirit of boldness, is a spirit of courage to speak about what most you believe in. So we talked about core beliefs. So when that Spirit came upon them, they had their beliefs, right? But it empowers them to speak more about it, to share it, to go out and, even if it's wrong, just to share it. And I believe that, if you have that Spirit within you, you are never shy about the gospel. You go out, you spread it, it's like fire, you catch it, but then you spread it to the next person, and it goes out. We see in all of history, there were mighty revivals that happened during our time. We had the Welsh revival, the revival of Azusa, and all those, revivals happened because the promise was given. Once the promise is given, things change. And, what I'm looking forward from this podcast is that people will, experience that promise, and, maybe through just listening to the various, topics we might have, they may begin to be filled, and begin to have the courage to, of course, gain their beliefs first. Sometimes you don't even believe in anything, and it's okay if you don't believe in anything. But hopefully, through the podcast, we can give you a belief, if that makes sense. We can share some things with you, and of course, we want the first thing we want to do is to pass on the message of Christ, and to share the gospel, and supposedly give you a belief. And then we hope that you will be empowered. And this is also for myself. Through this podcast, I hope, of course, I'll be empowered on a daily basis to not be shy and not be timid about the belief, and also to experience what those people on the day of Pentecost experienced, that we'll be bold about our beliefs. And so, second thing I'm looking forward to is, hearing the still voice of God. I think in this generation more than ever, we need to be hearing from God, and we are not. And I'm being general there, but I'm pretty sure that some of us are struggling to hear that still voice of God, and probably through this podcast, or through something, we can begin to hear more. We begin to experience God like never before. We begin to hear Him, and begin to have communion with Him daily. And He begins to speak those things which He wants for us to listen to. I believe God has so many nuggets, and He has so many plans for each and every one of us. But if only we can have time to listen, and probably through this podcast, we'll have that time to listen, and also recognize that this is God speaking here. God has something to say to me about so and so. Because I believe God has plans for each and every one of us. I think it's Matthew 6:33, very famous scripture. It says, seek ye first the kingdom and His righteousness. And in God's kingdom, there's so much we can have access to, and there's so much He wants to give us. But the problem is that we are not listening. So hopefully through this podcast, we'll be able to strengthen our spiritual senses. The Spider-Man movie came yesterday. What was it, the last week? And many people were excited about it. And I believe his power, the most interesting thing about his power, of course, is the spidey sense. That's very crazy. For you to detect things very quickly. And I myself am a fan of anime. And I forgot to mention that.
There you go. That's a hobby.
Yeah, that's a hobby. I don't know if I spoke about that, but I'm a fan of anime. And in one of the animes I watch, which is One Piece, there's a very cool thing, a very cool power that he has. It's called an observation haki. And what that helps him is he can be able to sense danger. He can be able to sense where there's a danger or just a risk at certain points. And that helps him fight better. Imagine being able to sense when your enemy is about to attack, or when you have to make the attack. It helps you win your battles much better. So that's what I hope this podcast will be able to do. Secondly, is that it will help us increase our spiritual antennas, and that we may begin as a young generation to hear from God more, and to hear what He has to say to us, because He has different nuggets for each and every person. He's a vast God. He has so much things to give each and every one of us. What He might give me is totally different from what He may give you. So, if we can listen more, we'll begin to hear more and begin to operate the way he wants us to operate and go in the line which he wants us to go in daily. So yeah, I believe I mentioned two things I expect from this podcast. Is that okay?
Yeah. I'll just double back on that point you made. One of the things that I've been meditating on, especially with the podcast and planning the episodes and, trying to figure out by God's grace what exactly we're trying to say. Initially, the way that I was approaching this was that we were sharing our experiences, right? And then I was listening to a wonderful podcast that I subscribe to and I listen to from time to time called the Equip podcast. And I think they're based in Northern Ireland or so. And they also talk about Christian issues. And one of the speakers was saying something about, experiences will fade and pass, but knowledge remains. And then that really stood with me and stuck with me because, we can't focus too much on experiences because experiences satisfy in a way that, I wonder if it's to our benefit. Sometimes people go for experience, so some of these, I think I sent this to you one of the times where you go to this escape room or something like that and you go to a bunch of friends and it's dark and you have to find your way out or something like that. And it's an experience and it sticks with you, but it doesn't change you. It's just something you experience and it's kind of, it satisfies the senses, right? But actually God doesn't want us to experience him. He wants us to know him, right?
Yes.
And that's something that I see as one of the goals of the podcast, that actually we're doing this and we are talking about our experiences, but we are also talking about what we know of him.
Yes.
And hopefully in talking about it, people actually will get to have their own experiences. They might actually get to live through our own experiences a little bit, not fully, but just as an intro, but then also have knowledge for themselves of who he is. And who he is a person he's willing to share with anyone who wants to have that experience. Would you agree with that?
Of course, we have so many stories in the Bible, and what's so special about the Bible is that each story or each character is unique. They have experiences, but there's no story which is repeated twice. There's no destiny. There's no character. There's no person who has the same purpose as the other. Each and every person has a different purpose. From the book of Genesis to Revelation, they're different characters with different destinies, different plans. So that's the same thing which we should embrace, is that yes, we read this Bible, but we're not supposed to and yes, we're going to share experiences, but you cannot base our experiences with your own experience, because it's going to be different for each and every one of us. Our experience is just to increase your faith. That's the same thing with the Bible. When we read it, it increases our faith that, if God can do this for so and so person, he can do it for me, but not the same way. We read the story about Joseph, of how, he passed through so many trials. It's not going to happen for you. That's the truth. It's not going to happen for you. It's not going to be the same way, but it just encourages you that, God can deliver Joseph. He can deliver you as well. Same thing with David. So many stories in the Bible with different purposes, with different experiences. And, the experiences are just there to give us a taste of what God is about. And, even after we read the Bible, even after we read the stories and we listen to this podcast, that's when we then have to hear that still voice and say, okay, you know what, God, I've seen what you can do. Now speak to me. Let me hear what I need to know so I can, continue. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, it does. Like the Bible is essentially, people's experiences that have been shared with us. It's scenarios in people's lives, and they're no longer here, but we are now. And it's up to us to have our own scenarios and to have our own experiences. But then we teach our kids and we teach our friends based on that. So actually, the experiences allow wisdom. The experiences allow knowledge. Not so much, that's scary, and that's whatever it is. It's not for the senses. It's actually for the soul, as in to make you better off
Yeah.
that you otherwise would have been. Yeah. Well, look, it's been lovely talking to you. And I know we'll hear more from you, no doubts, over the next few episodes, but certainly going forward as well. And I hope you've had a good time talking about your reflection on your walk with God and just on yourself.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me. And always fun to chat with you, Sam.
Yeah, I enjoy chatting with you. I enjoy the things we do together, Bible study, and just sometimes when we chat as well, just about life and all that. You're dear to me, and look, we'll see where we go with this. So, anyways, thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you before too long. All right. Okay. Take care.
Peace.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.